which Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman went to United States and asked the help of the American administration and the world to establish the two states is the only solution. Otherwise, we are going to really see something ugly in the region. And it's going to hold for a while, and then it's going to go to different direction. I can tell you that when we started KAICIID 2010, that was really the misuse of religion. Now what we are witnessing is the misuse of politics. And they are claiming it is under the democratic process. It's a lie. If the democratic process will bring leaders who kill and do this crazy things around the world, I think it is really going to destroy the whole world. So sorry about saying this. I know it's a celebration, but you know, it's a message which I cannot hide. And because I told you, I almost, you know, during the writing of my book, go to, you know, after all the hope we built, we went to square number one, and to reach almost zero tolerance. I think it's no way I will allow it. No way I will allow it more myself. And as long as we see 555 graduates from this great program. The other thing, I was joking with one of my best friends in the Holy See. He said, Mr. Faisal, what are you doing? I said, I just finalized my book. He said, what's the title? I said, the title is My Journey from Interfaith to Recycling. And I am telling you the truth because I am busy now with a lot of recycling things. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, yes, yeah, you will announce it? Yeah, no, Dr. Antonio, please come. You know, I brought you a gift, and you know, this is one of the best books. Please come here. You know, I will tell you just, you know, this you know, in Saudi Arabia, we are in the center of Arabian Peninsula. And if the camel wasn't created, we will die. We feel that if there is any holy animals, it is the camel to us, okay? Because it helps us, you know, survive. And it can go without water for 7 days. And the other thing, it has one of the best, what do you call it, value of patience. I think the best animal to be patient and do. So we KAICIID, we are patient. That's why I brought you our best book about camel. Very good book.
Thank you very much.
This book is one of the best publication of King Abdulaziz Public Library, and we feel that it is really a very, very good book and never been done in the whole world about camel. Okay?
Thank you very much.
I don't know if you like camel, but it's okay. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
It's now my turn to offer you a very small gift, but very meaningful for us.
Okay.
Sorry. It's now my turn to convey to Your Excellency a gift from the KAICIID team, thanking you so much for everything we have done for KAICIID since the very beginning of the center, and for being here today with us. After 3 years, you came back, and we are very honored for your presence and very pleased and happy that you could make it and be here today with us. So thank you very much and all the best.
Just to tell you something, you know, I remember in the old days of KAICIID when we start, I had an argument with a guy who didn't like us really in the Foreign Ministry of Austria, and I had almost a clash with him. And you know what I told him? I told him one thing. Do you know that the leader of Saudi Arabia promoted me as a minister to lead KAICIID, not because they want to promote Faisal Muammar, but they want to promote the dialogue position, just to look at it as in a high standard. And second, if I was asked one day to clean the floor of KAICIID, I will clean it. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellencies, for such a passionate and beautiful, genuine keynote speech. Indeed, this journey is made of highs and lows, and we're happy that you're able to get out of the dark and you can find some light and see some light here. Thank you for also being here with us today. It means you still like us, so we appreciate you. So now we will start getting ready for the official group photo. We will kindly ask you to please, in an orderly manner, move outside and follow protocol's instructions for the family picture. There will be some seats assigned, so please be patient. And then we will come back for plenary 1. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, okay. Okay. We're waiting a few minutes for everyone to come back and take their seats. Welcome back, everyone. Yes, I would like to. Okay, everyone, please take your seats. And I would like to check on panel number 1 and the speakers to make their way to the front if possible. Yeah. Beautiful. I think that you all showed what the power of our diversity can do, and the amazing feat that we had today, which was taking a beautiful picture together. So well done to all of you. I would like to invite Professor Patrice Brodeur and distinguished panelists for the first plenary of the day, a decade of dialogue and peace building. So please, Patrice, Sister Agatha, Dr. Mohammed Al-Sanusi, and Elias Shitsnitsky, please, and Dr. Basma, please make your way to the stage and please sit according to the picture on the screen. Starting with Patrice. Oh, yeah, yeah. A round of applause for our distinguished guests and panelists and moderator. Thank you.
Good morning. It's such an amazing honor to be here today, to start the first plenary after such beautiful, meaningful, and impactful contribution speeches that we've had earlier this morning already. A lot has been said also through the first video, flashing all of us that have been part, all the fellows that have been part of the programs over the last 10 years. For every one of us present, there's at least 4 other people, other fellows, as well as other people that have been part of making the fellows program possible, that are not here to celebrate with us. but hopefully they're here with us in spirit. We remember them, we mention them when possible, and we are here to begin the process in this first plenary on reflecting together with our few leaders here on this decade-long program of the International Fellows Program and its contributions, many contributions, to global dialogue and peace building. To start, we have an introductory remarks by Dr. Sanusi, the Executive Director of the Peace Network, the Peace Dream, the Peace Makers Network, really a pillar of contributions to KAICIID activities in general. And so he will begin with his own remarks on how he's connected and learned and contributed to the Fellows' 10 years work.
Great, thank you so much. Should I do it from there?
You can do it from there.
Okay, so I heard I have like 10 minutes. So let's see how it goes. Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning, and greeting of peace to all of you. It's really a pleasure to be with all of you and with you all, the fellows in this program. And I just want to, in the outset, I want to just express really my appreciations to all of you to the KAICIID Fellows Program 10th anniversary event. So congratulations to everyone. You deserve to celebrate, alumni as well as current members as well. So please celebrate. This is a celebration moment. We already heard remarkable speeches as well. I want to thank you, my dear brother, Professor Patrice, for your kind introduction as well. Patrice is a veteran in the interfaith and interreligious dialogue, and we really appreciate that. I want to begin by really appreciating the leadership of the KAICIID, and particularly, we're honored this morning to have with us the inaugural Secretary General of KAICIID. I will call him the inaugural Secretary General Emeritus of KAICIID, His Excellency Faisal bin Muammar. Welcome, Your Excellency. Faisal, your vision really laid the foundation not only for KAICIID, but actually for the interreligious movement around the world. I remember clearly when we incepted the network that I am leading right now almost 13 years ago. I flew from United States to Vienna to meet with His Excellency, Faisal bin Muammar here, to just brief him about this network, the network for religious and traditional peacemakers. And the first thing he said, I had the same idea. I had the same idea of such a network, but now you have it. We are not going to reinvent the wheel. What we're going to do, we're going to collaborate, we're going to partner, we're going to work together. Since then until today, the network continued to work with KAICIID. So thank you so much, Your Excellency. I also want to just thank, Ambassador, His Excellency Antonio, for the kind invitation here to be part with all of you, and of course to the fellows and to the current and former, board members of KAICIID. I just want to say that the establishment of KAICIID in 2012. Rooted in the historic, of course, meeting that we already heard from His Excellency Muammar, the description of that critical meeting, when King Abdullah, late King Abdullah, may God bless his soul, made that trip to the Holy See on behalf of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, actually to find what would be the solution to address the issues of the world at that time. And actually, they envision the future as well. I vividly recall attending the inaugural meeting of KAICIID, which was in 2012, provided hope and optimism to the international religious community. More than a decade later, KAICIID continues to fulfill that sense of optimism, even as conflict and polarization increase around the world. We see that KAICIID continue to do that. So KAICIID programming embodies the vision of multilateralism and hopes and helps to achieve the Agenda 2030, particularly SDG, Sustainable Development Goal number 17. Partnership for the the goods, and partnership for the goals. The strength of KAICIID lies in its convening power to bring together religious actors and policymakers to do what? To engage in dialogue in a dialogue in an inclusive manner. Dialogue, as we know, and we heard it this morning, at all levels and contexts is critical. Dialogue, it seeks to find common grounds, create balanced solutions to problems, and has the potential for communities to manage differences in ways that uphold and recognize benefit and prevent harms. This is what dialogue is actually doing for all of us. Dialogue prevents war, mitigates conflict, and strengthens peace. The Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, demonstrated the power of dialogue in the infamous Treaty of Hudaybiyah, where he prioritized, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, prioritized peace despite concessions that were unpopular in the culture of the Arabian Peninsula at that time. But the Prophet demonstrated that. He understood that such actions prevent bloodshed and protect sacred lives. This is what he has done and provided, concessions and dialogue. And he did that in the understanding that prophets came before him as well. And he, as the seals of the prophet, he built on these beautiful notions of dialogue from prophets that came before him, and as well as the prophets that we don't know about them. Some of the prophets were narrated and some of them are not. But he's building on all of this actually in this notion of dialogue. Dialogue between civilizations stands in direct contrast to confrontation. It's an exchange of ideas and perspectives aimed at reaching understanding and mutual cooperation despite differences in language, culture, or religion. Dialogue builds bridges, strengthens peace, and promotes shared human values. It searches not only for what is good, but for what is best. It is purpose. Dialogue purpose is not victory over other, but persuasion, understanding, and preventing conflict. Dialogue is the first word of peace. If war begins with words, peace must also begin with words. This notion, I clearly again understand, this notion was exemplified again by KAICIID in hosting a joint conference, some of us remember, with the United Nations. I see Professor Bunimir is smiling. The conference title, if you remember, Professor Bunimir, The Power of Words. The powers of words, the role of religion, media, and policy in countering hate speech. So, held in Vienna in October 2019, the conference was focused on countering hate speech and links directly to the UN's plan of action on countering hate speech. So, dialogue lowers tensions, opens doors, and transforms closed ears into listening mind. Dialogue is not merely a behavior, but a path, but an irreplaceable method of solving common problems for the mutual benefit of all. You know, among its many initiatives and recognition of the power of dialogue, KAICIID flagship program, the International Fellows Program, stand out as a transformational effort to advance interreligious and intercultural understanding. Today, I'm really honored to be among us, all of you, this incredible alumni and current fellows of this program. We have witnessed the incredible impact of these fellows from across the globe. The uniqueness of the fellows program lies in the inclusive representation of young people, women, and other marginalized groups. All these actors are essential to fostering sustainable peace. The impact and leadership of the fellows is demonstrated through their inclusion in majority of interreligious gatherings and platforms around the world. From my own, the network organization, the Peacemakers Network, we have been honored to have KAICIID on our steering committee since our inception in 2013, as I mentioned. As KAICIID brings tremendous insight into this work, and it's always an honor to partner with KAICIID. In addition, a number of our members, the network members, actually are KAICIID fellows. I see a number of them here as well in this room. These fellows always stand out. When we do programming around the world, KAICIID's fellows stands out. It stands out in our own programming. Yes, you can clap for yourself. You can do that because you really stand out in your own programming, especially when engaging with communities at the local level. The training you have received and the alumni received from KAICIID to increase their capacity in this field of dialogue has helped them tremendously in advancing localized interreligious understanding and cooperation. I'm going to leave you with a few examples. Our network member and a KAICIID fellow with us in this room, Venerable Napan. Venerable Napan worked with a Muslim KAICIID fellow to convene community visits and provide dialogue training for Buddhists and Muslims in the deep south, southern of Thailand. A lot of innovative ideas coming from you. Venerable Napan just was telling me last night, he did the first called Cities of Dialogue. He brought together 5-6 cities from Southeast Asia to Bangkok to dialogue. And as he is trained through this program today, he is the president of Religions for Peace, Thailand. So moving forward to another beautiful example, one of your member, Sister Ziba. Some of you know Sister Ziba. Achieved the remarkable distinction of becoming the first woman among Pakistani minorities to graduate from the KAICIID Fellows Program. Since then, she has won the Varkey Foundation Global Teacher Prize for her dedication to education, to educating underprivileged children, especially girls in rural areas as well. So these are some examples of the beautiful work that you have done. And lastly, building on his training from the Fellows Program, the Imam from Nigeria, Imam Shafiu Abdul Karim Majimo, the founder of the network member, is strengthening the Diversity Development Center and the Islamic Platform Society of Nigeria, engaged in interfaith leaders, including students, managing religious discriminations through interreligious dialogue in schools. So there is no doubt KAICIID's program have played a major role in addressing and mitigating tensions and conflicts between religious communities on the ground. If it were not for KAICIID and its follows, it is likely that some of these could have escalated to major crises. So before I join my co-panelists here, I would like to also to reiterate the growing importance of these fellows and the fellowship that support them. We are in an extremely tense time around the world, witnessing a growing number of conflicts and increased societal divisions. As governments around the world reduce foreign aid funding, and in effort in soft power, we must recognize and rely on assets that already exist in promoting peace. We understand majority of the funding of the world today going to the hard power. What we can do, we have to rely on our own assets to continue to promote peace, dialogue, and reconciliations. So KAICIID fellows are among the most valuable of these assets, consistently offering their expertise to advance dialogue with their own communities. So the biggest investment we can make in this field is the investment of people, of all of you, the almost 500 plus that we heard this morning. KAICIID has devoted a tremendous amount of time doing just that, empowering individuals to foster dialogue on the ground, particularly in conflict-affected regions. We deeply, collectively appreciate the partnership and the leadership that KAICIID has shown in this field. As we look ahead to the next decades, we are inspired by the next generation of change makers who will continue building inclusive and lasting peace. Thank you so much.
Shukran jazilan, Dr. Sanusi. Two things that stick out is really the importance of what I will call, I'll summarize it in 2 words, the power of empowerment. The power of empowering people, of investing people in capacity building for dialogue that is transformative and impactful in our own local context. So thank you for your words that are greatly important to the meaning of our being together today here over the next 2 days. Thank you, Dr. Sanusi. The second pillar, organizational pillar, accompanying very closely the Fellows Program's development over the years is, of course, Religions for Peace International, in particular, the Latin American region that is led by its Secretary General here for many, many years, Elias Sichnitsky. So it's a real honor to have Elias with us and to present the particular ways in which he's been pivotal at ensuring that this whole region of Latin America would be included in the development of cohorts, both regionally, but also of helping to identify key people to participate in the international cohorts as well. So, the floor is yours, Elias, for your reflections. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you, Patrice. Thank you, Ambassador Almeida, for the invitation. And of course, it's a pleasure to meet again with Faisal. I want to speak in Spanish because one of the important things of this organization is the diversity, the pluralism. This includes also the language. And Spanish is one of the official language of KAICIID. I understand that many of, and if I need to give some time to everyone to take the app of the translation, but I think that the translation is working, okay? Sorry, Patrice, we broke our agreement, but okay. I can't. I need to respect my mother language.
Is that okay? We're okay with translating into Spanish? It's good? From Spanish into English for those in the audience who don't follow Spanish, yeah? Let's allow for a second or two to people to get their... Okay, great.
Okay.
So,
Bueno.
just a few seconds.
Yeah, don't worry. Oh, thank you.
We're trying to be linguistically inclusive. Por favor.
Bueno, como bien dijo Patrice, la relación... It's not working?
Can we have a
Okay. Bajad, send me a signal from... Ok, bueno, como todos saben, y como dijo Patrice, la vinculación entre Religiones por la Paz y KAICIID es desde el mismo comienzo del KAICIID. Y muchos de los líderes de Religiones por la Paz, incluyéndome también, hemos estado en el lanzamiento del KAICIID en el 2012 en Viena. El KAICIID acogió nuestra Asamblea Mundial en el 2013. Y la verdad es que yo sentí en esos momentos, especialmente cuando fue el lanzamiento del KAICIID, un enorme avance en el diálogo interreligioso. Ver al rabino Pinchas Goldschmidt, el presidente de la Conferencia de Rabinos Europeos, dirigirse al público en el lanzamiento de KAICIID, fue realmente un momento histórico en las relaciones judeo-musulmanas. Y definitivamente también el KAICIID fue crucial para acercar a las comunidades musulmanas de muchos lugares al diálogo interreligioso. Eso creo que ha sido quizás una de las mayores contribuciones del KAICIID, justamente el poder acercar a las comunidades musulmanas al diálogo interreligioso. Pero por sobre todo creo que lo más importante de los primeros pasos del KAICIID fue, como todos ustedes recuerdan, en el 2008 se realizó la Conferencia de Madrid sobre diálogo interreligioso, que fue también convocada por el Reino de Arabia Saudita, la Liga Musulmana Mundial, y bueno, y que concluyó, como muchas de las reuniones, con una hermosa declaración. Pero luego, ¿it's working?
Here it's working. Is it working?
Yes, it's working with the voices.
Ok.
Please continue.
Bueno, entonces, como yo decía, lo interesante del KAICIID fue que la Conferencia de Madrid no terminó solamente en una declaración, como muchas veces terminan las reuniones muy importantes que organizamos, sino se trasladó a un paso práctico, a construir un centro para que ese movimiento impresionante que nació con la Conferencia de Madrid de 2008 se materializase en acciones concretas. Como ustedes muchos saben, especialmente los fellows.
Perdón, Elias.
¿Muy largo? No, okay. If not, I will speak in English.
Technical intrusion, sorry.
Okay,
But it seems like the voice of the translation into English is very soft. Is that correct? There's a number of people. Could it be possible to augment the level of the voice in English, please? Thank you. And in Arabic also. Thank you. Let's try it again. My apologies.
No,
Yes,
don't
por
worry.
favor. Por favor.
Okay.
Sí.
Bueno, como los fellows aquí presentes mayormente saben, pero también muchos de los invitados de este evento, hemos tenido una asociación extraordinaria con el KAICIID, entre Religiones por la Paz América Latina y el KAICIID, para desarrollar 2 cohortes latinoamericanos. Y esto ha sido una oportunidad extraordinaria para que líderes religiosos emergentes de la región, más allá de la barrera lingüística del idioma, hayan podido conocer otras expresiones de fe y especialmente conocerse entre ellos, al igual como seguramente ocurre con todos los cohortes del programa de Fellows. Para muchos participantes ha sido quizás la primera vez en su vida que han ingresado a una sinagoga, a una mezquita, a un templo budista. Y no hay forma más eficaz de romper los prejuicios que es conocer el alma del otro a través de sus espacios de culto. Me pidieron mencionar algunos ejemplos de cómo este programa ha logrado hacer importantes cambios en la región. Y voy a mencionar a 3, y por favor le pido a los demás fellows que me perdonen porque no puedo mencionar más que 3 ejemplos hoy. El primero ha sido Bolivia. Bolivia, gracias a la participación de Beatriz, que hoy no está con nosotros, pero que ella ha sido una persona que ha logrado reconstruir el diálogo interreligioso boliviano después de muchos años que se había interrumpido. Y ustedes dirán, bueno, Bolivia es un país chiquito, no es tan importante. Sí es importante, sí es importante. En primer término es muy importante porque tiene una población indígena muy grande y tiene grandes tensiones étnicas y por lo tanto haber contribuido a conformar este diálogo interreligioso boliviano ha sido un gran logro. México, aquí está Karen, que es una persona extraordinaria, que todos los latinoamericanos la queremos mucho. Bueno, ella en estos momentos está lanzando un programa con el apoyo de la Fundación Hilton y de Religiones por la Paz Internacional para formar una red de mujeres de fe en su país. Y esto está fortaleciendo enormemente al Consejo Interreligioso de México. Y la participación de Karen ha sido extremadamente estratégica para este logro. Pero también en Perú, el país en donde yo vivo, Guillermo, que hoy no está acá, no nos acompaña, él ha hecho un trabajo brillante para fortalecer el Consejo Interreligioso del Perú. Y movilizando recursos. Yo sé que puede ser que son, acciones que en otras regiones del mundo son muy conocidas y no representan ningún avance, porque ya son sociedades que han consolidado la multirreligiosidad. Pero nosotros en Perú, para el Día Nacional, poder realizar un servicio interreligioso de oración con la participación del presidente de la República, transmitido en vivo por la televisión pública nacional, es un enorme logro que a su vez también requiere de muchos recursos y Guillermo fue la persona que supo conseguir esos recursos. Bueno, para terminar, voy a hacer algo que nunca hago, pero me siento entre amigos y por ello me permito esta dispensa de todos ustedes. Quiero por un momento sacarme el sombrero de Religiones por la Paz y quedarme solamente con la kippah. Porque tengo la necesidad de decirles, mis amigos, mis amigas aquí presentes, que estamos sufriendo una pandemia de antisemitismo en el mundo. Y necesitamos también del KAICIID para ayudarnos a enfrentar esta pandemia de antisemitismo. Nunca antes, desde los años 30, hemos vivido una ola de antisemitismo como estamos viviendo en estos momentos. Y yo sé que lo que voy a decir ahora puede resultar controvertido, pero viene desde lo profundo de mi corazón y desde mi profundo sentir como judío. El antisionismo es una forma de antisemitismo. Y ustedes seguramente se preguntarán, ¿pero cómo si hay judíos antisionistas? Yo les voy a contar que hace aproximadamente 230, 240 años atrás, cuando en Berlín se comenzó el movimiento de la ilustración judía, lo que llamamos la Escala en hebreo, muchos judíos, al ver que se les abrían las puertas de las clases altas, entonces decidieron hacer todos los esfuerzos para integrarse con las clases altas en Berlín. Incluso los salones más reconocidos de Berlín eran regenteados por mujeres judías. Pero luego estos judíos comprendieron que debido al antisemitismo religioso, sin convertirse al cristianismo, no serían aceptados. Y finalmente así ocurrió. Muchos, casi todos, terminaron convirtiéndose. Hoy tenemos otro tipo de ejemplo. Hay muchos judíos que sienten que lo más importante para ellos es ser aceptados por los progresistas, por los progresismos. Y para ello no les importa de algún modo negar una convicción central en el judaísmo, que es el retorno a la tierra de Israel. Por supuesto que todos aquí queremos una solución pacífica del conflicto con los palestinos, es una solución política muy complicada, pero ese no es el tema aquí. Lo que quiero transmitirles finalmente, y con esto termino, es que cuando se nos dice sionistas genocidas, cuando se nos dice Free Palestine, sentimos que quienes nos dicen eso, nos declaman eso, están de algún modo pidiendo la muerte de todos los judíos que viven en la tierra de Israel, algo que de algún modo se prefiguró con el 7 de octubre. Y por lo tanto es muy grande nuestro dolor cuando escuchamos esas expresiones. Gracias, Patricia.
Gracias, Elias. Thank you, Elias, for speaking from the heart, for sharing your experience organizationally as well as personally. Thank you for also the importance of understanding that we are in a difficult situation today. We are in a profoundly polarized context in so many different ways. The world talks about the polycrisis period that we're going through. This is one kind of crisis. There are many, many more. And all of us are affected to different degrees by these different crises. The question is, how do we address them? Personally, spiritually, intellectually, and emotionally. And we are given the tool to dialogue, to try to keep those emotions at bay so as to be able to listen to different perspectives, to go deeper into the quality of the understanding of what we each face, as we honestly share what we feel and what we think, while we know that there is the capacity to listen in a respectful way within our group, within our fellows community, within the KAICIID community and beyond. And that is an expression of how much we have achieved, but also the incredible challenges that we still have to go through in improving the quality of our training to make us better listeners, better able to address those deep divisions that we may have, and the challenges on a personal, spiritual level of challenging those negative emotions when we hear things that we just fundamentally disagree with. You've heard me say this before. It's never been truer than today. And I'm thankful for our two first panelists for giving their respective sort of institutional and personal sharings of what it means to collaborate with the Fellows Program in particular, knowing that, of course, the Fellows Program is one of many programs within KAICIID. And so there's a whole ecosystem within KAICIID. And you are both part of that ecosystem, and we are grateful for you personally and organizationally for the role that you've been playing, in particular, of course, with the development and the strengthening of the Fellows Program. So thank you to both of you. Now we turn to our two wonderful, I call them elders of the Fellows Program, because they both go back to the first year, to this pioneer group, Sister Agatha and Dr. Basma. They are known as Sister Agatha and Dr. Basma. Everybody knows them internationally through these wonderful way. But we're actually in the presence of pillars of religious leadership, of intellectual leadership, theological leadership, whether it's in terms of the growing sort of impact that Sister Agatha has worldwide through her investment in especially coordinating women's dialogue, interreligious dialogue works from Nigeria, her home country, to Africa, and of course internationally, especially through Religions for Peace Women Network and beyond, and also on the international level. So thank you for being here, Sister Agatha. And we have, of course, Dr. Basma, who's from Saudi Arabia, who has stories from even before KAICIID began, because of her privileged position being a Saudi citizen. And she's a leading educationist with an amazing impact in the educational developments of universities in Saudi Arabia and beyond. And so we're very pleased to have both of you share some of your reflections and examples of what you've learned from the last decade of being the pioneering KAICIID Fellows. Sister Agatha and then Dr. Basma.
Thank you, the moderator. Yes, the memory is still very fresh. I still remember it very, very, very vividly. In 2012, when we were invited to Vienna, Austria, just like Dr. Mohammed emphasized, for two important programs. First was for the inauguration of KAICIID, and the second was the 9th World Assembly of Religions for Peace. I remember I was there, and I witnessed the whole thing. And that was how it all started, till 2015, when we were asked, unlike, I don't want other fellows to be jealous. You applied. We were asked to come and join the program. We were invited, and we gladly joined the program. So I'm speaking both for myself and for our 2015 group. So as one of the pioneer fellows, this moment carries deep personal meaning for us. When the program began in 2015 at Vienna, Austria, none of us, particularly my class of 2015, fully understood how far-reaching this program would become. But we knew we were stepping into something new, something meaningful, something untested, yet profoundly needed. 10 years later, that seed has grown into a worldwide network of bridge builders and peace practitioners, men and women who continue to transform conflict, counter hatred, and build human dignity through dialogue. Looking back now, I see how those early steps helped shape my own journey of peace building and interreligious engagements in relation to working with women of faith who have long been at the forefront of community healing. We speak of 10 years of the Fellows Program at a time of rising violent conflicts, extremism, polarization, and uncertainty. We have witnessed how faith can either divide or heal depending on how it is used. How women, often overlooked, stood courageously on the front lines of community mediation and reconciliation. My personal experience, rooted in years of working with women of faith in interreligious dialogue spaces and peace building both in Africa and beyond, has shown me that peace does not emerge from wishful thinking. No. It grows from intentional encounters, courageous listening, and genuine relationships across lines of faith, culture, and identity. These values lie at the heart of KAICIID Fellows Program. 10 years ago, the Fellows Program has done something extraordinary. It has nurtured a community of practitioners who not only study dialogue but embody it. Through rigorous training and continued mentorship, KAICIID has prepared fellows to be catalyst agents for change in some of the world's most fragile and polarized contexts. Over the last decade, the Fellows Program has become a global model for dialogue-based peace building. It has demonstrated that when people of different faith and culture come together, not to debate, but to understand one another better, the possibility of cooperative action multiply. As someone deeply engaged in gender justice and interfaith peace, I have witnessed how empowering women and youths can transform communities. When women participate in dialogue and mediation, the process becomes richer, more compassionate, and more rooted in community realities. The KAICIID Fellows Program has helped to institutionalize this understanding by creating spaces where women's leadership is recognized and strengthened through dialogue. As well, share our experiences. For instance, I happen to be one of the fellows, the pioneer fellows in 2015 from West Africa. But today, I bet you, we have not less than 50 fellows from West Africa. I'm talking about West Africa alone. Then, in Africa, yes, Religions for Peace through the African Council of Religious Leaders started something, on working with the African Union on Agenda 2030, Agenda 2063. Yeah. But when KAICIID came, KAICIID decided to strengthen that, to build on that, because at a time, the ACROL was not coming forth on that assignment. KAICIID have to take it up and work with all of us to reinforce the need, the importance of collaborating with the African Union. And as I bet you, as I talk to you today, we are working with the African Union, the KAICIID, both the fellows and non-fellows from West Africa. My sister is here from SIDO, and she has been helping to champion all that. That's one of our examples in Africa. So as we are celebrating this 10th year, I have already started looking to the next 10 years. And for that, the task before us is very clear. We must continue to deepen the culture of dialogue at all levels, both at the local, national, and global levels. We must ensure that interreligious engagement remains the pillar of peace-building strategies worldwide. And we must continue to equip leaders, especially women and youth, to serve as mediators, advocates, and ambassadors of peace. The legacy of KAICIID Fellows Program is not only in what it has achieved, as we have heard earlier, but in what it will continue to inspire. It has taught us that dialogue is not optional, but a necessity. It is the quiet power that transforms conflict, restores trust, and rebuilds the social fabric of communities. KAICIID, and indeed some other peace-building organizations, like my own organization, the Cardinal Onaico Foundation for Peace, has laid a solid foundation for this. The next 10 years, therefore, requires us to build boldly upon this by investing more in women and youth as dialogue leaders, and by ensuring that dialogue becomes a continuous practice and not just a response only during crisis. Today, we honor a decade of commitment and courage. We honor the fellows whose work lies the way forward. As a pioneer fellow, I stand here with gratitude and conviction. Gratitude for the journey that KAICIID set in motion. Conviction that dialogue continues to be one of human's strongest tools for healing, for justice, and for peace. Therefore, this Fellows program has given us that tool and the network. Now we must continue to build, we must continue to innovate, and we must continue to collaborate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sister Agatha, for your wise words, for your contribution, helping us to lead forward with further innovation, especially in regards to gender justice, to more empowerment of women and young people, youth. That's incredibly important, and I want to thank you for sharing that. And I know that many other fellows are involved also in this room and beyond in such areas of action. So thank you to all of you. Thanks, Sister Agatha. And now, our final panelist, Dr. Basma. Tfaddalu.
Thank you, Prof. Patrice. As long as I don't know what's happened to my voice, although I try not to sing yesterday, but okay. Hola a todos, Excellencies, colleagues, and friends. Before I begin my remarks, I would like to share with you a part of my journey. As Dr. Faisal bin Muammar mentioned that it is a journey, and for me it's such a beautiful journey. A chapter that I share with my, this journey is a chapter that shaped both my professional and personal path. As I look back after 10 years, on 10 years since the first cohort, I remember moments when it never crossed my mind that I would one day stand here as a living example and a witness to the vision that King Abdullah, may he rest in peace, had set for dialogue and coexistence. As my period of leadership at the women's section at Taiba University at that time was drawing to a close, we had the honor in 2012 of visiting King Abdullah. Prior to the launch of the center, at that time when we met him, he shared with us a far-reaching vision for a global center at that time, a global institution through which the kingdom would open its door to the world. And I can really ask most of you, if anyone before 10 years, if it is someone tell us that a Saudi woman is sitting on the panel sharing with different religions, friends, they won't be accepted and they won't believe. And because 2016 I was in England, and my friend and my colleague Alex remember that 2016 I was in England, and the discussion at that time, how could you believe that you cannot drive? So, and I told them that time, it's not about drive. I have in my phone colleagues and friends from different countries and from different religions. And the vision came true. After King Abdullah said he would open, the kingdom will open its doors to the world from this institution, reflecting the true message of Islam. شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. in a coexistence and tolerance. It was a moment that planted a seed of faith that dialogue is not merely an institutional, but a message sown in hearts. Message really sown in hearts and carried across generations. And responsibility we share in shaping a future built on dialogue and respect for human dignity. In my community, the most significant examples come from bringing dialogue into real, everyday structures, especially education, as I worked at the university. We integrated dialogue and coexistence into university programs. And thank God I established this program in interreligious dialogue in the university for the high education. Until now, thank God, developed structured dialogue initiatives for youth and led community engagement projects that strengthened social cohesion. These experiences showed us that when dialogue is rooted in institutions and practiced consistently, it becomes a transformative force that reshapes relationships and expands understanding.
Shukran jazilan, Dr. Basma. Thanks also for your words. Thanks for your words of wisdom as well, and for your leadership again, to show us how from this empowerment and capacity building about dialogue, you then brought this into your university world at the higher education and made it possible for thousands of students now to actually be educated in the dialogue competencies and skills necessary to relate better in life with all kinds of situations from the local to the global. So, shukran, thank you very much. She mentioned sort of an Arabic word which is really important, lita'arafu, which means, so that you get to know each other, but it has this root form of mutuality. You know each other, but not just unidirectionally. It's really like mutual direction. And it's absolutely foundational to dialogue. And so thanks for reminding us of this. And I want to also just say that we have two incredible elders of the first dialogue KAICIID Fellows program here. But I'd like to ask those who are also from the first cohort to stand up, so we can really thank you as pioneers. There's Wiwin, there's Alexander, and who else? Yes? There we go, and Victoria, yes. So thank you to all three of you and all of the other members of the first cohort. You've been pioneers and you've helped all of the others following you. So again, thank you, Sister Agatha and Dr. Basmi, for that leadership. I'd like to close by thanking all of our panelists for the time you've put into preparing your remarks. They were shared with knowledge, with heart, and with honesty. And this is the way we continue, hopefully, the reflection on the learnings that we have made over the last 10 years together. So that we can actually, and I'm not sure if we need to recycle the program, but definitely improving it is definitely in order, as all models of dialogue programs need to have and go through over time. And so thanks again to all of you, to all of your incredible listening. Your quality of listening this morning is fantastic. That's also competency. Thank you. See you later. And now it's a break time.
Before you go, please, I would like to acknowledge His Excellency Faisal bin Muammar, really the leader of this journey.
It's working, it's working, it's working.
Is it working? Really, the leader of this journey, whose vision created a global platform for dialogue, and who warmly, really at that time, welcomed and received our inaugural cohort in Vienna, Dr. Mohammed Abu Nimr, whose mentorship and academic leadership enriched the intellectual depth of the program. Professor Patras, whose early guidance helped shape the fellows' learning experience. Anas Abadi, key fork, whose consistent support contributed to strengthening the fellows' network. And Corina, who has been with us since the early days, since I first met her in 2015. The warmth of her presence has never changed. Her energy, kindness have remained really a constant source of connection, and her continued presence with us today is deeply meaningful. As we reflect on this decade, we also look ahead with purpose, the need for dialogue, greatest than ever, and this is the message. My hope that the Fellows Program will continue to lead this global effort, expanding in reach, deepening in partnership, and inspiring future generations to make dialogue not only a practice, but a living culture, as His Excellency Faisal bin Muammar mentioned. I would like to extend my appreciation to those who have recently led the program and carried its mission forward. Andrew James Piot, Justina, Mohammed Arous, Mike Waltner, not to mention Baha, Anna, Yulia. Thank you and congratulations on this remarkable 10-year journey, and obrigado.
Thank you so much for this first beautiful panel, and thank you for coming to the 10 years of His Excellency Faisal bin, of KAICIID International Fellows Program. You didn't get the joke? Okay. Okay. No, but thank you all. We are now going for a break. Please enjoy some coffee and refreshments and tea. Continue the conversation outside. And then we'll come back at 12 to start the next plenary. I'll see you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We're about to start. Thank you.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Please, whenever you can, take a moment, take a seat. I hope you've enjoyed your break. Thank you so much for being so attentive and practicing active listening. We are back now with plenary number 2, which will be moderated by Professor Mohammed Abu Nimer with his distinguished panelists, What Happens When Dialogue Fails. So please, panelists and moderator, please take your seats according to the pictures on the screen. And please, can we have a round of applause for our panelists and moderator?
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon for everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again after several years of absence or disconnect. It's very excited to see many familiar faces and also renew the connection. Thank you, KAICIID, the program and directors for this invitation to re-engage. I'm delighted to be here with you. Our session today is with a, I'd say, provocative title. So, assuming that failure indeed take place, so we'll try to reflect on this framing of it. We have 5 distinguished panelists. I'll not read the entire bio, so I will basically read the title, and you have access to that in your folder or on the app as well. I was also asked to remind you with the 10 principles of dialogue that we work on them with the training. So I'm not going to make a test now if you remember them or not. But I'm assuming you have repeated them so many times. So just please listen and suspend judge. I cannot but repeat them. Suspend judgment and listen and respect the other views. And it's about the emotional capacity of every one of us to actually absorb and process what you listen to and reflect as well. And if you don't have to talk if you can't, but please be mindful of your own shortcoming before you point to the other side. Remember, this is much more difficult, but this is where we all start before tell others what to do. These are the principles that we have. I'll say a few words about this, and I think it's very important. From the morning, we've acknowledged each other's achievement, acknowledged each other's success, and really the wonderful success and achievement was made in the program in the past 10 years, and you could see that not only in this room, but also beyond with the sheer number of 550 fellows who have been trained. I think it's also equally important to reflect on the challenges, and we've seen with His Excellency Faisal bin Muammar when he reflected about the different challenges he faced in terms of the dialogue as well. And I think it's important. That's part of to be genuine, to be honest, and to be reflective, what we call in theory reflective practitioner, one who has the capacity to name and label and diagnose what's happening in order to find the cure and to improve our work. So the purpose of this session is to learn and try to see how things can go, or when things goes wrong, how do we move forward. And in theory of peace and conflict resolution, I teach at American University for the past 30-some years, that field, so I know some literature about that topic. We know dialogue really have the pitfall or the problem can have from three categories. The first category, when there is a structural and power asymmetry, that basically the sides involved in the dialogue don't have the same equal access, the same political, military, economic, personality, and the dominant side try to impose their will. That's a structural problem. I'm not going to emphasize that as much. The second one, the dimension of psychological barriers. And I think for our conversation, this is maybe more important for today's conversation, because emotions and feelings and the heart is crucial in the dialogue. We invest ourselves in the dialogue. So, and those come, the emotional aspect or the psychological barrier usually come from an inflexible narrative. When your narrative, when you present your narrative, your story of the conflict is not flexible. You don't leave room to the other at all. You're basically busy, occupied, telling your own story on, and it has an element of denial. You engage in denying the other side in that sense. The second one is the collective trauma. When you belong to a group or family or whatever it is, interpersonal, community, and collective, when you experience trauma, first-hand trauma or second-hand trauma, that makes the emotion very raw. And therefore, the first thing we need to do is to acknowledge those emotions. That collective trauma can really be very meaningful in identifying it. The third component I'd like to suggest here to keep in mind when our 5 speakers speak, the issue of dehumanization. Dialogue is based on the principle of recognizing the humanity of the other. And it breaks when the dehumanization process takes place. When you see victimhood and you justify it or give it some justification why people experience it, whether it is in Sudan, in Ukraine, or in Palestine, Israel-Palestine, that element of dehumanization is in the core, in the heart. So the need to recognize that is very important. And there is moral exclusion, is when your morality is not involved or acknowledged. And finally, with the psychological barrier, we have the principle of fearful of being betrayed. You see, I've established thousands of relationships in the past 40 years and through dialogue. And when there is a crisis like the war in Gaza and the ethnic cleansing and the genocide, as the narrative, Palestinian narrative describe it, you look for people, you can rely on them in that process. And that's where the sense of betrayal emerge. Because I've had a friendship, we had trust. Whether it is a Jewish, Israeli, or Palestinian, those relationships of trust established during the dialogue. In the crisis, we need to revive that element of trust. And what does the crisis do? Eliminate those trust, the base for a trust. So the question, what can be done, is very clear in terms of the psychological barriers. And finally, also the failure of the dialogue sometimes takes place from the unrealistic expectation. Dialogue is not a magic for every solution for everything. So we need to be realistic in that sense, and also our design sometimes is problematic. What do we call dialogue? As we used to do in Israel-Palestine for many years, I used to call them the hummus and falafel dialogues. And those were not as deep and engaging and committed, so the design had some issues. We need to be very clear what to expect when we go in dialogue, and I think that will save us a great deal of aspects. So anyway, those are the 3 areas. I'm not sure our panelists, what area they're going to hit in their diagnostics. We have 3 questions. Why dialogue fail? The second one is, what are the signs? How could we see it? The cost and the sign, because when dialogue fails, it has costs, individual and collective. And the third one is, of course, we have to say that and to deal with it. What can we do? Because we don't want to beat ourselves and be only critical of what went wrong. We want to look for solution. What will help each side to move forward? What is it? What do we need to say, to do in order to re-engage? You've heard from the morning the call to re-engagement from every speaker. You've had 6 speakers, 7 speakers. Everybody says we have to continue and be committed and engage. How do we move out of this sense of failure or sense of crisis into the next step in re-engaging? What are the suggestions? I'm hoping that our diverse panel actually will respond to 1 or to 2 or to those 3 questions. And I'm hoping also that we have some time to converse with you at the end, give you some space to speak as well instead of us only speaking to you. So hopefully we'll have a few minutes at the end. So I'm going to, with your permission, I'm going to invite His Excellency Minister Dr. Alexander Reger, the head of the Dialogue Unit in the Austrian Ministry for European and International Affairs, to start our conversation. Your Excellency, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, congratulations. 10 years is a great anniversary, and I've always thought that the fellowship program was one of the flagship programs of KAICIID, and in that sense, I'm very happy to see all of you here today. Because at the end of the day, dialogue needs many things. It needs state partners, but it especially also needs civil society partners, otherwise there is no basis for anything to happen. Now, when I was invited to speak in this panel, I was a bit irritated by the title, I will be very honest. We just heard from Mohammed not to point any fingers, but I will point fingers because I think it's a terrible title. A really terrible title. It's a very defeatist title because it invites us to reflect on collapse. But as diplomats and as peace builders, we know that dialogue rarely fails in a single dramatic moment. More often, the conditions for meaningful engagement erode. Systems may be unable to absorb shocks. Political will dissolves faster than trust can be rebuilt. We know that it's always faster to break something than to build something. And obviously, there are external developments that we may not be able to influence, but that happen, and that can be momentarily a problem. So dialogue is not a binary exercise with a pass-fail outcome. It's a long-term relationship. It's marked by pauses. It's marked by recalibrations and inevitable moments of frustration. And I worked 4 years in Iran just after the JCPOA. The way we worked was a bit an up and down cycle. Depending on political developments, sometimes we could do a lot, other times we kept a lower profile and we waited until things improved again. Again, not even directly to do with Iran, but sometimes there were political developments, even on the regional level, where things just needed to tone down a bit. So this is a bit the way it works, and this is also the way that I see how dialogue can work. So in that sense, calling a process failed can delegitimize moderates and embolden hardliners, justify disengagement. And experience shows that even an imperfect, fragile dialogue is safer than silence, because not talking to each other is the worst outcome, and that is when we reach the point of dehumanizing others, of not seeing the other, and of being able to construct all these bad images that then make us do the worst things. So rather than asking what happens when dialogue fails, we might ask something more constructive. What do moments of interruptions teach us, and how can we design dialogue processes resilient enough to survive them? Now, what are some of the early signs that things are not going well? When negotiators shift from direct communication to press statements, when draft texts freeze, there's no movement, there's no compromise, when back-channel contacts become more active than formal meetings, signaling that trust has migrated away from the table, or when technical issues suddenly become political because the political space has narrowed. Consider the example of the JCPOA negotiations that I already mentioned. Consider also the COP climate negotiations, where single phrase, phase out versus phase down, can stall consensus for months. So in both cases, dialogue does not fail. It becomes constrained by timing, by context, and by power dynamics. What does successful dialogue require? First of all, I think mutual recognition and dignity. We need to see the human dignity of all the participants. The moment one side feels humiliated, dialogue becomes performative. We need clear mandates and especially realistic expectations. If there are divergent understandings of what a process can deliver, it's a common cause of paralysis. We obviously need inclusivity. We need to include women, we need to include youth and affected communities, otherwise we produce agreements without legitimacy. And of course, in that sense, we need to include religious actors into the conversation, without thinking that by including religious actors we can suddenly solve everything, but I would argue that by not including them, we are definitely getting a worse outcome and possibly an outcome that may not be supported by all sides. And of course, we need a sound process architecture. Successful processes rely on verification, continuity, and credible accompaniment. And crucially, many setbacks occur before formal talks begin because the foundations are weak or expectations unrealistic. Now, on the one hand, there are internal setbacks, such as insufficient respect or lack of genuine willingness to reach an agreement, unclear or contested mandates, power imbalances that delegitimize the table, leaks or weaponization of information, fatigue due to stalled implementation, hardliners dominating narratives, or symbolic missteps, such as insensitive scheduling or ignoring trauma. But probably some of the bigger challenges are the external pressures, the external factors that we cannot influence. We may design the best dialogue possible. Everybody on both sides may be in agreement that we want to move forward, and suddenly things happen outside of our control which just do not allow us to talk to each other. It may be as simple as an electoral cycle where suddenly priorities shift, renewed violence, or spoilers on the ground. We all know that it just takes one spoiler to spoil everything and to make it much more difficult to talk to each other. Disinformation campaigns, especially online nowadays, a lot of disinformation happening. Regional spillover, economic crisis, of course, also very important, and geopolitical competition that shape local incentives. Now, when high-stakes dialogue is interrupted, the consequences are rarely contained. We may have institutional paralysis, regional instability, shrinking humanitarian space, which means that civilian protection becomes harder as access narrows. Diplomatic fragmentation when we have competing mediation tracks that dilute leverage and confuse stakeholders, and a heightened risk of escalation, because without communication, miscalculation becomes a constant danger. Now, in an ideal world, states would ensure continuity beyond electoral cycles. We know that does not often happen. We would avoid dialogue theater. Talks should be more than symbolic moments or photo opportunities. We need to protect civil, cultural, and religious actors who sustain dialogue at the community level. We need to invest in preventive diplomacy and soft power rather than relying increasingly on coercive tools and hard power. And an added challenge in diplomacy is, of course, that every few years, many of us change posts, change positions, so the expertise that we build up tends to get distributed to other places, and somebody new has to get up and relearn all the things, all the lessons that we have. And then, of course, we have to model constructive rhetoric, recognizing that language can expand or contract the public space for dialogue overnight. So framing is a very important factor. Now, let's talk a bit about what Austria is doing concretely, and this is more on a bilateral level. I'm the head of the Task Force Dialogue of Cultures and Religions in Austria, and I see my work based on three big pillars. We have the pillar of religion and diplomacy, where we, together with colleagues of other European Union countries, but also the EU and other like-minded countries, work together. We exchange, we try to coordinate, and we work also on right-sizing the role of religion. Neither over nor underestimating religion, because both approaches are wrong. The second point is freedom of religion or belief, and in the last few years we've been quite strong in this area, and usually freedom of religion or belief activities are pointing the finger at countries and telling them all the things they do bad. We have a more dialogue approach. We try to have an exchange of best practices. We try to learn from each other, and we try to see what it is that works on the state level, but also on the civil society level. And finally, we have a number of bilateral dialogues with countries such as Morocco, the UAE, or Indonesia. Again, it's an exchange of best practices, but I think what makes our dialogues unique is that it's a track 1.5 approach. That means we include both state, but also civil society representatives and religious representatives. So we try to bring everybody together on both sides enabling an exchange, enabling this learning from each other, trying to identify practices, trying to bring the cooperation closer, and trying especially that these lessons, when they come back, are shared within the communities of the people that attend. And last but not least, since 2014, we also have the Intercultural Achievement Award. It's an international award that is called for every year, where we recognize and reward the best intercultural and interreligious projects worldwide from civil society. And just this year, we had George William Acora, KAICIID Fellow, who won an award. And it just shows the quality of the fellowship that you have and of the networks that you have. So it's a great way of mapping internationally what is happening in the field of dialogue, what is happening in projects that promote peaceful coexistence. So all these examples remind us that dialogue becomes sustainable only when anchored in institutions and not personalities. And I'm a firm believer that dialogue is very important and meeting each other is very important, but working together, doing things is even more important. And identifying motives, identifying platforms where we can come together to work on something is an even better step than meeting regularly and among like-minded, obviously, because all of us here are for dialogue. So what we need to do is go out there and bring these lessons and these insights to the people out there. So in conclusion, I will say that dialogue processes do not fail. They're interrupted, they're strained, they're overloaded, they're temporarily abandoned. But what we have built, the relationships that are built, they are still there. And we need to find the right time, the right setting, and the right way to move forward. So our responsibility as diplomats and peace builders is to build dialogue ecosystems and resilient relationships that are enough to survive such moments. Because the only true failure occurs when communication stops entirely and societies surrender to polarization. Everything else is part of the work, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Reger, for the... I'll just highlight 3 points. The first one is really the issue of inclusion in the process, and it's more of a design. Second point, thank you for sharing the importance of, despite the break in the relationship, communication is essential to continue and have that, as well as thank you for continuing your efforts in Austria with the bilateral work, and I'd love to see how you do dialogue through FORB, the freedom of religion and belief. That's a very good example, I think, to adjust that. And of course, we all love awards, so please continue and give those awards.
And please apply.
Thank you. I'd like to invite our second speaker, Ms. Ruth Berer from Les Racines de Demain.
Les Racines de Demain.
Les Racines de Demain. Now I'm authentic, right? Go ahead. You have your own 8 minutes. Thank you.
So, les racines de demain, in French, it means, in English, the roots of tomorrow. I will talk about it, but first I would like to tell you about my first failure in dialogue. I was 7. I didn't even know what meant dialogue, like we have dialogue. But I was in a playground playing with a little girl, and she started to speak to me in Arabic. And I looked at her and I said, "Look, I'm really sorry, I don't speak Arabic." And she said, "Why? We look alike. You should speak Arabic." And I told her, "Well, yes, you're right, but my father is from Morocco, my mother is from Tunisia, and together it's not the same Arabic, so they don't speak Arabic at home. So I didn't learn Arabic. And also, I'm Jewish." So she could understand the first sentence. But when I told her that I was Jewish, she ran to her mother, and then she came back to me. And I said, "So we continue to play?" And she said, "No, I can't. I don't want to catch the Jewish disease." And I had never learned about that disease. I was only 7. Anti-Semitism was not something that I had heard about. So I didn't want her to catch this disease, of course. I told her, "Look, go back." And I ran to my parents. "So what is the Jewish disease?" And that's when they started to explain me that some people have ideas, and okay. I was 7, 4 years later, I decided that one day, when I would be a grown-up, I would fight this disease. But first I had to understand, where does it come from? And actually that's what I'm doing every day with Les Racines de Demain. So why did this happen? Because for 2,000 years, Jews were a minority everywhere in the world, since Romans, it's not yesterday, okay, Romans, threw the Jews out from Jerusalem after destroying the temple. It was in the year 70 after Jesus Christ. And so for 2,000 years, the Jews as a minority, and as a minority, there are no equal rights. And we don't really understand those people so bizarre. Have you ever seen a Jew, like when he's praying in the morning, with tefillin, with his boxes on the head or on the arm, with the talit, with the shawl? It's like, that's really strange. Well, we could have some fear about these people. And then they killed Jesus. And then much more recently, in the 19th century, there were the Russian police who wrote the protocols of the Elders of Zion, explaining that the Jews wanted to rule the world, to make everyone a slave. If the Shoah happened, it's also because of that. All this link to link, amongst 11 million of people, of Jews living in Europe, 6 million died. That's what I had to learn, to understand. But learning is so important, but when you go and you grow, you know that victimization is not interesting. We all have stories. We all have things that are hurting. So you just go ahead and you go. And I had the chance of being international commissioner for the Jewish Scouts of France. And on that behalf, I represented the Jewish Scouts in Thailand in 2002. And when I went to shake hands with the head of the Arab region, he refused. He said, okay. Maybe he just saw the protocols of the Elders of Zion. I had seen that it was very like, it was in movies and in TV series in Egypt. He was from Egypt. So I thought, okay, maybe he believes that. That's a shame. But then the Tunisian scouts, which were around, told me, Ruth, you shall not leave. You stay here until we go and speak with him. They went to speak with the head of the Arab region of the Scouts. And then 5 minutes later, marhaba, how are you? How is doing your father? And the connection was done, not by me, but by people who knew me, who knew him, and who knew there was no way he could be like refusing the dialogue just because I was Jewish or representing the Jews. By that time, I was also very concerned about what was happening in France in Judaism. And when we say in French, les querelles de clocher. Les querelles de clocher means when there are quarrels between parishes, okay? It's the same in every religion. It's the same in every group. And I was a bit fed up with some Jews saying, we have the right way of doing the religion. No, we have the right way. Okay, I created in France something that I had seen in England, that I loved in England. I said the best way of re-engaging the dialogue is to put everyone in the same room, and for 3 days, they're going to melt, to mix. There will be a few different services at the same time. A reform service, a conservative service, an orthodox service, and an egalitarian. And apart from the services, they're going to learn about what is important for them. I'm not going to tell them how to think. I'm going to bring them enough people for each one to go and learn what is important for them. It is called Limud, and you have it in almost in every country. That was so important for me because I thought, me as a Jew, if I go and meet some other people, I know who I am. But if we don't know who we are, we can't go and meet others. And there is a famous sentence of Hillel, a Jewish wise elder, a sage, who said, if I am not for myself, who is for me? If only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? So it's now. At Limud, I met a Muslim girl, who told me, you know what, I'm going to Palestine in 2 months from now. Why don't you come with us? It was in 2011. I thought, okay, that's a great way. I was living by that time. I decided to move and to live in Israel. And I went there. And it was very challenging for me. But I learned a lot. And it was challenging for me, but it was also challenging for the group of French Muslims with whom I was, because it was a great way to dialogue. I must tell you, we were talking like all the time, but why are you a Zionist, Ruth? Well, are you sure you want to ask me this question in the restaurant in Jericho, where, I don't feel that safe. So redefining the notion of safe space, and then we can go and talk, and I will talk with my heart, and I will explain you my point of view, and you don't have to agree on it, but at least understand it. This friend, Samia, with whom that had brought me here, after a year, we created another trip to Israel and Palestine for Jews and Muslims from France to go and discover who are the peace builders in both places to build together. And it was a great trip. And we went to see really good people. But during that trip, that friend, she turned. Like she really turned, like to the wrong side of the force. And I lost my friend. And I was really angry, really angry at her. When I tell you that she turned, she explained me at some point that if she knew so much about Judaism, it was to turn against the Jews and to be the most horrible person against the Jews. How could she tell me that when I had opened my home to her and my heart, because she was really my friend? And I decided, okay, it's finished. I don't want to speak with Muslims again. Like, not only with her. Like, it was, I was angry. I was really, it's not fair. A few years later, I met in a meeting 2 of the girls that we had brought, 2 of the Muslim girls, French Muslim girls, and they came to me and they said, Ruth, we wanted to thank you. Okay, why? Because you protected us. I don't understand. Yeah, you protected us from Samia. What do you mean? And then I realized that I was really angry to all the Muslim people at large because of her, but she had not been fair, nor nice, not only to me, but to all the group. And the other Muslim girls who were in the group, they were related. They felt that something was wrong with her. It was not because she was Muslim. It was just because it was her. And she had her own story. And I really realized that all this anger that I had against a group of people had just to be down, because what really it was a question of person, not a question of religion nor group. And it was a Muslim girl who came to me thanking me for protection, for the protection that I had provided without realizing it a few years before. It was a great lesson that I learned from her. I see that I don't have time anymore, so thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruth, for sharing your personal experience from age 7 and sharing with us your commitment to fight anti-Semitism through education and through engagement, and also new realization about the one have to go out of the victimization and reach out to other. And also it's interesting that you mentioned intrafaith dialogue, where you did the work with the French Jewish group. That's good. As well, your last example about the danger of generalization, and you brought it to the personal. So thank you for those suggestions, and all of them are within the psychological barrier. So thank you again. Dr. Amjad Abul-Izz is Academic Alliance for Interfaith Dialogue and the professor at the American Arab University in Ramallah.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Professor, Your Excellency, colleagues and friends. I'm Amjad. I am Fellow 2019. I would like to start thanking KAICIID because one thing. I'm 50 years old now. I never have any Jewish friends in my life. The only I have when I came here. Before, the image of a Jewish person, the same like the image that Ruth was describing, totally different, like fears. And at the same time, they, as a Palestinians, and I'm sure a lot of Israeli Jews in Israel, they have the same bad image about us. But it's not the title of the dialogue now about the panel, why it's failed. The first questions, before we start, I want to start with a couple of questions relating to our life. I'm not going to cry here. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to play the victim of the Palestinian, because we are victims of the victims. So the question is, do we truly have a dialogue today? And has our dialogue ended before it's ever begun? And with who we're going to have a dialogue? How two people speak when fears shape and how they see each other? How do we talk when our suffering, our trauma echo louder than our voice? How I can speak if my words Gaza, Nakba, occupation are not welcomed in any dialogue? These questions. And I want you to come. We here in a nice hotel. Come and try to live as a Palestinian one day in West Bank. It takes me 4 days to reach here. Imagine your life when you leave home in West Bank and you are thinking in your head you're not coming back because of misunderstanding dialogue and the checkpoints, more than 900 checkpoints in West Bank. Which kind of dialogue we are talking about? Dialogue with who? How do I dialogue with someone who does not see my humanity as a human being? How? I speak you today. I don't want that be misunderstood, especially like my Jewish friends and Jewish colleague. I stand here not against you, but before you as a human being, asking to be seen. I ask you, do we really truly have a dialogue today? With who we gonna have a dialogue? With Somotrich Ben Gafir? I'm sorry, because we're talking about dialogue. We don't have. Even people-to-people dialogue, like what we call it, like grassroots dialogue, failed. When some of my friends go and have this kind of dialogue. Who put the agenda? One of my friends talked to his colleague, another part. Let's talk about Nakba. No, you cannot talk about Nakba. Let's talk about occupation. No, you cannot. So what to talk about? Let's talk about food and music. Is that what we want to talk about? What about my right to exist? Do you see me? It's not the right time. So what kind of dialogue do we have? And we will talk in dialogue, and do you think we are equal? You want me to talk about food where the occupation is still going, where expansion of settlements, more 1 million settlers live in West Bank? How can dialogue succeed? When communication collapsed, emotional wounds deepened for Palestinian youth. Let me talk with you about Palestinian youth. I teach at university, most of my students between 18 to 25. After the 7th of October, we conducted a research, the impact of the 7th of October on the Palestinian youth in Gaza and also in West Bank. For the Palestinian youth, the world often feels like a place where their suffering is invisible. They don't trust anyone. According to the survey, more than 80% of the Palestinian youth, they don't trust institution, they don't trust international law, they don't trust European Union, they don't trust the UN. So what they trust, they said, we are in our own. Nobody feel our suffering. And actually, what do you think their perceptions toward the conflict? Most of them, they become more extreme in their views towards the others. That's because of what's happening now in Gaza. Your Excellency, Mr. Muammar said about the lack of, when mentioned about the lack of religion in conflict now, and there's a lack of politics. Yes, there's no any kind of dialogue, even politicians, they are not interested in seeing dialogue between people to people. So, for the Israeli youth, we conduct a couple of surveys as well. For the Israeli youth, the fears becomes inherited before they were met as Palestinians. So on both sides, we have this kind of fears. So what future remain in our children inherited only fears? Trauma, shape everything. Memory. I like the ideas when we mentioned, Professor, about the memory. Some memory, which could be a bridge, becomes a barrier. Another sign of a structural inequality. When I ask my students about today, we're going to shape a political party. You want to join me? Maybe around 45% of Palestinian youth, yes, we want to be part of this political party. And when I ask the rest why you don't want to participate in this kind of activity, say, I don't trust politics, I don't want to be in politics. The second question, what are we going to do with Israel? No, we don't want to recognize Israel. I'm talking about Palestinian youth. Why? Because we don't see. We are the generations who born during the Oslo Agreement. We haven't seen the fruit of the peace. What we are seeing, more checkpoints, more settlements, more land, more killing. So, what kind of peace you're talking about? So, a lot of, as I mentioned here, I stand not against anyone, but as a human, believe that dialogue requires honestly an acknowledgement. Acknowledge there's a people there suffering. Dialogue means refusing to let darkness have the last word, and actually, now the darkness is the dominate everything in both sides. For our children, for your children, we must not let darkness win. Unfortunately, there's no room for dialogue now. No. And I mentioned, yes, now maybe there's a quietness, there's kind of, but the future, we are not so optimistic in the Middle East. With this kind of policy, with this kind of government, we are not at all optimistic. So my experience of dialogue, zero inside Palestine. Unfortunately, I'm very honest, but that's the gloomy pictures of within the Palestinian youth. Some of my students ask me where I'm going, and I explained to him, I'm going to KAICIID, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And he said, please, professor, we don't believe in this kind of stuff, because reality on the ground is stronger than any lecture, any seminar, any books for coexistence. The settlers' attacks on the Palestinian civilians on daily basis is stronger than any lecture you're gonna deliver. I'm sorry for my sad speech, but this is the reality on the ground. I hope dialogue one day succeed if they accept us and if they acknowledge that we are there equal. And not dehumanize us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Amjad, for sharing your own narrative and the basics of how one feel what you describe in terms of reality. You focus mostly on the cost of militarization, replacing words communication with military, with the condition described, and it's a break in communication and connection and contacts, and you mentioned trust, but these are all within the cost of dehumanization, and you left with fear. But I'm interested in to reflect on the last point that you suggested, which is really acknowledgement seem to be the message that you're seeking. And I would say a mutual acknowledgement also is very important, not only acknowledgement per se, but also to be reflecting on the mutuality of it. But thank you for the honest, and also for the, no one is expecting you to say kumbaya. But also it's good that you were able to share those honest messages here. I think we're going to move from Israel Palestine, because it seemed to me that the emotions are high now. So maybe Lantana Abdullahi from Nigeria, the Network for Nigerian Women Mediator, can also give us some inspiring stories about your experience with dialogue. Thank you. It's good, yes.
Is it? Okay. Hi. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lantana Abdullahi, and I'm also a KAICIID Fellow from 2018. And let me begin by saying we are in a commemoration mood as women, and of course as men also. I'm wearing orange symbolically because we are in the weeks of the 16 days of activism against women and girls. And I hope for everyone seated here today, not just as dialogue facilitators, and we are hoping that you can continue to join this campaign to eliminate all forms of violence against women. I also represent the largest contingent of KAICIID Fellows. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we are more than 35 from Nigeria. So, and we also, if I'm not mistaken, the largest contingent of delegates to this 10th anniversary. We are 10 in the room. And I'm sure you cannot miss us because we are dressed in our African attires. So thank you so much for having us. And I will actually be sharing from our Nigerian examples, and of course also linking to other African examples. And I'm really happy for this topic. As a dialogue facilitator, I think it's, when I got the topic, I was really excited because it gave me a moment to really reflect on why, why we keep failing in our dialogue approaches and also ensuring sustainable peace in our country and also in our continent. But dialogue, of course, like we all agree, is one of the most important and essential tools for preventing violence, restoring trust, and rebuilding fractured societies. Africa has always utilized dialogue to resolve conflicts. For some of you who have had the examples of the Gacaca in Rwanda, the Ubuntu, who is the most popular principles of dialogue in Africa. Of course, the Zauren Sulhu in Nigeria, we call it Zauren Sulhu. We've always utilized dialogue in our own African traditional ways of resolving disputes. But I think I've always also believed that dialogue has shaped the way the world it is today. I always reflect on how the Berlin Conference took place and how Africa was annexed. We have also seen a lot of the dialogue that occurred historically between Muslims and Christians. Especially as a Muslim, when I go to communities that are very combative about interfaith engagement or dialogue, I always use the example of the Holy Prophet, who asked, Muslims to go to the present-day Ethiopia, right? If I'm not mistaken. I've always, like in African, we draw inspiration from that example from our Holy Prophet. And of course, the Jewish-Muslim dialogue that has also occurred during those times. We cannot also take away the fact that oftentimes, especially as the world has evolved, dialogue seems to fail or to produce lasting peace. And Nigeria and Africa, and I'm going to be talking from our own lived experiences of why now, for example, why dialogue fails. So in my context, I think one of our approach is that, especially from our leaders, is the fact that we see dialogue as reactive, not preventive. So dialogue only happens when we have violent conflict or we have conflicts. And there are many examples. Boko Haram did not start today. Or even the debate that currently have Christian genocide in Nigeria. I'm sure a lot of you are following the news from the Trumps making Nigeria a country of particular concern. It is because we have failed to actually address issues as they happen. The Boko Haram, the independent people of Biafra, the Niger Delta crisis, the farmer-pastoralist conflicts, they have always had emerging signs. There have always been early warning signs. But unfortunately, we seem to act too little, too late to be able to address those problems. And then dialogue does not include the right stakeholders. I'll speak to you from our tradition. We like to sit on the tables to bring political leaders, faith leaders, but we often exclude the key people that are supposed to be in the room. And that's why, as a tradition, dialogue seems to be failing in our context, because the people who are carrying the guns, who are inciting people, especially religious leaders or faith leaders, they are often not seen on the table when we are discussing or using dialogue to resolve issues. One of the other things is also currently, as a country, there's a deep mistrust between communities. And I'll tell you why in Nigeria we have this deep mistrust. When Nigeria was amalgamated in 1914, and the North and the South protectorates was brought into one united country called Nigeria today, it was a marriage of inconvenience. We were two distinct, diverse, nations. The North were largely had their traditions, their cultures, their religions, and so also for the South. But for ease of administration by our colonial masters, we were brought into one distinct country. And that marriage inconvenience still stands today as we speak. Nigeria has never had a united front when we are dealing with issues. It has always been a debate about the North versus the South, or the Christians versus Muslims in whatever we do. And that's why today you see the debate about Christian genocide. And it will interest you to know why that is happening. It is not that Muslims are not being killed in Nigeria. It is because the North do not naturally or necessarily have the platform to, air their views or to report their issues or to amplify their own stories. But it is not, we are not denying the fact that the Christians are being killed in Nigeria. Of course, Christians are being killed, but we've always said we needed a balanced story because we don't want to live in the danger of one-sided story. And then, of course, when dialogue becomes politicized, what happens? It fails. Today, a lot of our governments in Africa try to lead the dialogue processes. But these are the same people who are causing us harm, who are, causing poverty, who are making us not have access to food, to basic necessities that we needed to survive. And then you have those same people who are violating our rights, our fundamental human rights, wanting to actually, lead the dialogue space. Of course, the lack of trust for the stakeholders is also very important. Of course, lack of follow-up implementation. A lot of our dialogues are being led by non-governmental organizations, independent organization, and that can also lead to a lot of problems for us because at the end of the day, the funding ends, and then who follows up with them? Then dialogue does not address our structural drivers of conflict. I think that's one thing. I always see dialogue as a means to an end. It's an entry point that enables you to penetrate, allow communities to, connect, to communicate, to understand each other, to build, to talk to each other, to interface. But when you don't deeper, you might actually be able not to achieve the goal. And then the lack of trust in facilitators, the cultural mismatch in dialogue approaches. And I think this is one area I want to talk about. In Africa today, we adopted the Western style of dialogue. In the past, we used to have our gachachas, our Zaur and Sulhu, our Ubuntu dialogues under the trees, in the chief's palace, sitting down on the mats, on the, on sands, just to discuss our issues and then to come up with our, solutions. Today, it has become so westernized that people feel it's just a talk shop. Let's come and have the coffee, the lunch, and then the stipends for our transportation and move on. Of course, one other thing is also the exclusion of faith. I think in Africa, and indeed in Nigeria, I'm sure a lot of you know that Nigeria is a country of 200 million citizens, almost nearly or evenly divided by Muslims and Christians. So when you talk about Muslim nations or Christian nations, Nigeria fits into that because there will hardly be the 5 countries that will have 100 Muslims as citizens of their country or Christians as citizens of their country. But Nigeria has both of that. But when you don't utilize the role of faith leaders in, addressing your problems, then definitely you get into trouble. So in Nigeria, faith leaders have actually largely been excluded from, dialogue or from, conflict prevention or peace building. Dialogue fatigue, somebody I've had talked about that. But I think what happens when it fails, I think we have been dealing with the consequences. And seated among us in this room, I just wanted to celebrate one of us. Just to give you an example, when dialogue fails, what happens? One of us, a KAICIID fellow, two of them have actually been directly impacted by why dialogue fails. Father Stephen Ojapa was abducted, and he spent 4 weeks in the kidnapper's den. And that's to tell you an example of the effect and impact of why dialogue fails. So Father Stephen, we see you, we celebrate you, and we are happy that you are safe and you are back home. Can you stand up, please? One of us also, Isa Friday Okonko, is not in this room, but he was also nearly abducted. He was only saved by the grace of God. But I think there's no time. I've already been seeing Abu Nima, but just to tell you that despite all that has been happening, I think I want to also recognize KAICIID for investing in one of the largest independent dialogue platforms in Nigeria called the Interfaith Dialogue Forum for Peace, which I technically support, and it's a 120-member high-level faith leaders in Nigeria. So thank you, KAICIID, for doing that, and I think it is making a lot of progress and supporting in the interfaith platform. And I will tell you also that the statement from Trump, and I want to stand on that, has really eroded all the progress that we've made as part of us interfaith actors in the country. It has been very challenging, very disappointing, because we were already moving towards a certain direction, but that statement has really dragged us back. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lantana, for bringing up the Ubuntu and the Gachacha. And Ubuntu is I see you. I see you. Yes, I am. That's part of the African, South African also tradition. And also interesting that you also repeat similar message from Amjad as well, in terms of the root causes of the conflict are very important to be addressed. Otherwise, the dialogue will have more difficulty. And also you basically spoke about the notion of exclusion as an act. But also you brought something that Ruth mentioned about the deep trust or mistrust and its consequences on that process. His Grace Tapana Mishra Das, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And I don't think you're by accident the last one in this panel, so maybe you can address the third question as well. What do we do? Because we have heard a great deal about diagnostic and cost. I'm sorry if I burden you with that, but we do expect from the Krishna to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. This is the graveyard shift, as we call it. Before lunch and after lunch. But I had one realization sitting here for last 1 hour. These seats are much better than where you all are sitting. So if you get an opportunity to speak, please come and sit here. Well, I've been asked to speak on my perspective or scriptural perspective, spiritual insights on 3 things: conflict, humility, and listening. And I hope that it can offer what you mentioned as point 3. I begin, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Hare Krishna. I represent the Hare Krishna movement here. I'll first talk about conflict. Almighty God, Allah, Bhagwan Shri Krishna. Creation, there is enough for everyone's need, but not enough even for one man or one woman's greed. When we define conflict, we often wonder for the causes of conflict. But conflict arises because a particular person, group, state, or nation wants to take over and control the resources, the wealth that is deserved by others. Now one would wonder that despite all education, pedigree, and intellectual prowess that lies in such bodies as states and nations, why does this occur? It occurs because within such frameworks are individuals whose intelligence is lost. In the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, this very important insight is offered as to how when greed and desires occur, they lead to fall of intelligence. I quote here for all of you from this treatise, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse number 62 and 63, by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It reads, when contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. From attachment, desire is born. And from desire arises anger. From anger comes delusion. And from delusion, it leads to bewilderment. Bewilderment leads to loss of memory. And when memory is lost, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down into ruins. It's a principle, analogic, that can be applied at an individual level. And when it fails at individual levels, those in power utilize to create a world that is put into ruins. The verse, as it is pronounced in Sanskrit, I'll recite for you. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa sangasteshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kama kama krodha abhijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibhrama smriti brahmashat buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati. In this, the word pranashyati essentially means ruins. Now, after having understood the cause of conflict, it's very important us to progress. How can we overcome conflicts? How can we overcome these desires? Most religious treatises emphasize that we should develop qualities and value systems that can keep us away from greed and desires. In the Vaishnava treatise, something similar is defined. In the writings of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his 8 verses treatise is a verse number 3. In verse number 3, it defines humility. And it defines humility that one should chant the holy names of Lord in a state of mind where one considers oneself lower than a blade of grass on the street, more tolerant than a tree. And these examples are given to help us understand what is the level of humility that we need to develop in our lives. Obviously, all of us would like to develop this humility. And what would such a humility lead to? Such a humility would lead to a state of mind which will allow us to curtail our desires. And the following verse in the same treatise describe it very beautifully. First verse says, Trinadapi sunichena taror api sahishna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadhari. Essentially saying we must offer all respect to others, which I understand is a very, very fundamental principle for dialogue or for any conversation. If one is able to develop such a state of mind, it naturally leads to us not desiring wealth, power, prestige, and adoration. I remind you all that all of us who are gathered here have at some point in time been reminded that these are the things that we should not desire. So the treatise spells it out, the 4th verse, Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadish kamaye, mama janmani janmani ishvare, bhavatad bhaktir ahituki tvai. That a sincere practitioner of faith always seeks the shelter of the Supreme Lord and wants to keep himself away from wealth, prestigious birth, power, etc. Now, a natural outcome of a humble state of mind is that one would like to listen. One would like to hear from others. Now, we always wonder, why is it that we enter into a conversation, everybody wants to express their thoughts? Whereas, in all religious texts, we are encouraged to hear. We are hearing from others. Listening, as we have understood at KAICIID and in all of our faiths, is a very, very important principle. In fact, I would like to urge you now to think through each of our traditions and share with me example from your own scriptures, and we'll do a short exercise. where you will notice that all scriptures often are a conversation. They are a dialogue. They're a conversation between an inquisitive person and a person who wants to offer pertinent answer. I start with first example, the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between Arjun and Lord Shri Krishna. Now I urge you, all of my fellow KAICIID family members, coming from different faiths, if you can kindly volunteer and share with me, which will remind all of us that how all of our practices are based upon listening. So would I request one of our Jewish colleagues to share from the scripture very briefly, just a conversation that gives us teachings?
That's when my role as a facilitator being kidnapped. So, but it's okay, I'm tolerant of that. So if you would like to do that, can we also do that in the Q&A, or
we should do that in the Q&A.
Good.
But if we are hesitant, please take a moment and reflect on all that we have learned from our scriptures to recognize this fact, a very important idea that we should listen. What I described to you in the past 6 to 7 minutes is how conflict arises, how it's very important to be humble, and humility would lead to listening. And I urge all of us to apply the principles of KAICIID that we've learned in our lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you. You know, I want to thank you, please have a seat. I want to thank you particularly for you daring to take the podium and give us your primary language of faith. By reciting from the Krishna tradition, I think that's something that we don't see much in the so-called interfaith dialogue, and we speak usually a secular language, as you saw from the morning. But our friend and colleague and brother here took the podium and spoke the language of faith. And the language of faith is challenging usually, but he spoke it from his own heart. And he spoke about the greed in the center, the greed. But to counter the greed, you need to do humility, respect, and listen. And that's the 3 values he suggested for us, if I understood your message in that sense. So thank you again. Thank you for sharing part of you from the Krishna tradition. Of course, in the core of it is greed versus intelligence, or reason, as in other traditions called. You also invited people from different faiths to share from your own primary language, from your own script, anything that in a very brief moment that support those value messages. Thank you all. Thank you for your contribution. We come to this portion of you actually sharing with us, and we have about 20 minutes if Anna would allow that. Thank you. We have permission from the organizer to go about 20 minutes. I'd like to do that in 3 waves. The first wave of 2-3 comments, and then we get very brief response from the individual or from all the group. And the second, then we take another round. Hopefully we'll get to the 3rd round. We're trying to establish a dialogical container in this room. And it's usually very hard with 120 people in the room, but we're going to try. So please avoid the preaching, avoid the speeches, avoid the blaming, and if you have anything else beyond that, please say it. That's my request from you. If you have a specific question for somebody, please do that. And I really appreciate if you brief in your message. That would be much appreciated. And I don't have, yeah, good. I think, go ahead.
Thank you, everybody. Mine is just really from the depth of my heart to thank, my name is Father Stephen, by the way, and I was the one that was kidnapped. So I want to thank, really from the depth of my heart, Ruth and Amjad. Really. We don't have the solution to any of the things you said, but I really want to thank you for daring to say exactly how you feel. God bless the 2 of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I think that's Sister Catherine in the back.
Thank you so much, our great panelists. You've just done justice to this work. The only thing maybe I want to add is to re-emphasize on what Dr. Amja, said, that when dialogue fails, for me, the question should be, has there been dialogue in the first place? Are we dialoguing because we are discussing issues that all of us agree? Oh, yes, members. Or are we bringing out those uncomfortable issues that nobody wants to hear? I think that is the dialogue, and that was the point he was trying to make. So when dialogue fails, we have to go back to the drawing table and begin afresh. We have to go back and begin to ask those hard questions that we are shying away from. And when we do that, we will begin to have sincere dialogue. Dialogue goes with sincerity. If there is no sincerity, there is no dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And then okay, then you're after him.
Thank you very much, Elder Ambassador Justina Mike Ngobia from Nigeria. I just want to encourage every speaker. Thank you all for this compassionate speaking. Just to say that we should be hopeful. When dialogue fails, it is the very beginning of another dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, our lady here. I'll ask you to come.
Hello everyone, I am Kenu from India, and as I gather from this session that in spite of the fact that two dialogues that I see have failed, one in case of Palestine and another I see in Nigeria also, and it's really great that we still see them sitting there, dialoguing on the issue, and I think that is the essence of dialogue, and that is the essence of KAICIID also. So thanks to you and thanks to everybody that you are still continuing the dialogue in spite of all the failing the dialogue. So I think dialogue never fails, it continues.
Thank you. Thank you. I can't see. Yes, go ahead, the doctor from Morocco. Maybe I'm taking from this line only, so we'll come to the West Bank. Yes.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم
طبعا
السلام.
سأتحدث باللغة العربية. لدي تعقيب. هذا التعقيب أبدأه هل يمكن أن نتحاور مع من يرفض الحوار؟ لأنه لا يمكن أن تتحاور إلا مع من يؤمن بالحوار.
فكرة خلينا أترجم ولا أنت تترجم بعدين؟
لا.
شو لا؟
هناك ترجمة أظن مباشرة.
لا لم يضعوا هذا. He says, I want to speak in Arabic, and he has a comment. The first one is, it's a question. Can you dialogue with somebody who refuses to dialogue? كمل.
سأقتبس من الدكتور أمجد. طبعا أنا أكاديمي باحث ولدي مشاريع نشتغل فيها في نشر ثقافة الحوار داخل صفوف الطلبة في الجامعة. لماذا الجامعة؟ الجامعة لأن هي النخبة، وهذه النخبة كل طالب سيصبح أو سيتدرب ويؤمن بقيم الحوار، آنذاك سينقل تلك الثقافة لأسرته ثم إلى عامة الناس.
I am an academic researcher, and why we teach in the university, because we believe by transferring that knowledge to students, they will take it also into the society. باختصار تعال للنقطة الأساسية. تفضل.
أنا شخصيا أشتغل على سلسلة أو دلائل الحوار، الحوار الأسري، الحوار التربوي التعليمي، الحوار الإعلامي، الحوار الديني داخل المساجد أو أمكنة العبادة. وشكرا لكم.
In brief, I work in different aspects of dialogue, media, family, business, community, politics. I work on all these aspects of dialogue, and thank you for your input. Yes, please, the gentleman in the middle. Yes. The two of you, actually, one can start and then the other will take next. If there is any specific question also, please, we welcome it to the panelist. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Theodat, and in my cohort, I was known as the one who asked the most questions, so obviously I couldn't allow this opportunity to pass. Great job, panelists. For young people who see dialogue as ineffective or as empty as explained by Dr. Amjad, what role can individuals play in rekindling belief in dialogue as a tool for justice and change? Thank you.
About the role of youth, and I think several of them did that. We'll take the last one in this round, and then we'll open it to the panelists to comment in 1 minute on one of those. Yes, please.
Thank you so much. My question is for Dr. Amjad. As a professor in a university, I used to listen to the ideas that university is not helpful at all, like it's useful, because we only research or write books for ourselves. But I would like to know, according of your experience, what's the role of the university in the interfaith dialogue?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. So I know there is two specific questions to Amjad, but maybe we can open it up for everyone. And you have heard each other, 5 of you, and also heard some comments. So if you want to comment on any of the aspect, I'd love to hear from you if you feel.
Maybe I'll come back to one of the last questions on the role of dialogue. Dialogue is not relevant for its own sake, in my opinion. We dialogue to get somewhere. We dialogue to live peacefully together. So in that sense, this is the overarching goal. If we all manage to live peacefully together, we achieve the upper objective. So less talk and more action.
More action than talk. Yes. Would you like to comment? Thank you.
Do you hear me? Yeah. Yes. I would like to say that I disagree with Dr. Amjad. Why? I lived for 6 years in Israel. And there I was very active with a movement. Okay, so you're not a woman. Maybe that's why. The movement was called Women Wage Peace in English. And it was a group of women from all different backgrounds, meaning both Palestinian and Israelis, and Arab, Muslim, and Christian and Jews Israelis, and Arab Palestinians meeting. They were not political, and they were not really hurt by politics, that's for sure. But on the ground, they were there to talk, to have a dialogue, and to say, yes, we do want to build together something which looks like us, and it's not a place where we are going to kill each other, but where we are working together. And there is also the circle parents. There are a few different places, so it's not political. And I agree with what was said. When it's going on the political side, it's much more complicated. But on the civil side, there are ways to build dialogue. And I just wanted to give some hope on that field as a woman.
Let's start the questions about the role of the universities. Yes, I agree. I mean, the political situation is so dangerous. Even to talk about dialogue now within the Palestinian universities, it's not easy. Seeing what's happening in Gaza is dialogue cannot heal while people bleeding. It's not easy to talk about having a conversation. Yes, I agree. There's a lot of groups, they have discussion. But the questions, do you think they have any impact on the politicians? No. They just lobbying, but the politicians, they don't listen. I will give you an example. The business community in Palestine, they established what's called Break the Imbus. They try to talk to the Israeli businessman, convince them to have kind of lobbying on the decision makers. I'm talking about 5 years ago. One of the businessmen is my friend. He told me we met with hundreds of Israeli businessmen, communities, trying to convince them to have a dialogue with Netanyahu and his government to convince him to adopt a peaceful solution. And we stopped. And I told him why. He said, because it's useless. They don't have any power. Security is the main power in Israel. So the business community failed to have any influence. Yes, I know one of my friends as well, she's involving, but I'm talking about West Bank. Yes, you find a lot of people in 1948 involving in discussions, but when it comes to the West Bank and Gaza, it's dangerous. When it comes to universities, we established what's called Academic Alliance for Interfaith Dialogue. And actually, because of KAICIID, they funded us for 5 years. We managed to organize more than 35 workshops and seminars to change the stereotype. We invited scholars from Sharia law, departments, universities, and theologians. We have partners. We managed to change the stereotype, the misunderstanding. We invite people to come to the mosque and churches to Bethlehem. We managed to change the perceptions about others. When you're talking about Islamic Christians, Muslim Christian dialogue, not Jews, because as I mentioned, it's not the time now. And a lot of people said, you know, we cannot have dialogue when you are bleeding, when you are under attack. It's not the right time now. So yes, universities have initiatives, but I think it's just between Muslim and Christians, not Jew. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we hear from Lantana if you have any.
Yeah, just a quick one. I think someone asked, how do you dialogue with persons who refuse to dialogue? Is this working? I think from my experience and from my perspective, I don't think there's anyone who will not want to have dialogue. I think what is very important and critical is the processes you adopt and the approaches. So when someone feels threatened or doesn't feel inclusive or feels there is a power imbalance or he feels the stacks are, piled against him, I think nobody will want to come to the table. But if they feel that you have created a safe space, a very conducive space, I think everyone will want to dialogue. So it's about the manner, the approach, the processes you adopt. I think the last thing I just want to talk about is to also recognize that dialogue is not enough to bring solutions to all our problems. It is the vehicle that will take you to the next destination of finding peace. I think that's the way I see it, especially from my context. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I'll keep it very brief. My observation has been an artificial imposition of dialogue does not work if the participants of the dialogue don't adhere to value systems. What the world has done, often in the name of secularism, is to take away God completely, and it has only led to a world which is more disruptive. It's very, very important for us to observe and see only when, whether in a family or in a society, individuals are brought up with good values, can they be prepared for a dialogue.
Thank you.
Artificial impositions may not always work.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll take 3 more comments, and that will take our 3 last minutes of this conversation. So if I just can see it, yes, please, from this side, and then Brahim Najim, and then the lady in the front of him. Yes, those are 3. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Scholar, and I'm a scholar from Kenya. I want to really appreciate all the speakers and just want to say that the truth is that from the very beginning, each one of us present here would not have felt like sitting together with the neighbor that you are seated with. But thanks to KAICIID that has prepared us over years. And I want to say that just like it was for us, we are now instruments prepared to go and mentor others. Because if in this house we have Jews, we have Christians, we have Muslims, we have Buddhists, we have whole kind of like many religions are represented here. So I want to believe slowly by slowly, just like it was for us, it will work even for the rest. Thank you.
That's what I call the shwai shwai message, slowly. So we're asking you to be really patient and shwai shwai. Yes, please, Dr. Najim.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you. I just want to end with also a hopeful message. To me, dialogue never fails. And it is intrinsically something good that we engage in and of itself. It is something good that we have to engage in, even though the circumstances might feel like it's bleak and dark. We have to engage in dialogue, because one mistake that we always do when we engage in dialogue is that we want to reap the benefit or the harvest right away.
Too quickly, yes.
We are so impatient. But echoing my friend from India, I just want to briefly, in 20 seconds, refer to a magnificent verse in the Quran. And this verse teaches us that we ought to do our homework regardless if we are going to live around until we reap the harvest. It's not our business. We do the homework, and we are sure that God will make it work, whether we are around or whether we are dead. And this verse is echoes also the major Abrahamic faiths. It's talking about Prophet Abraham, when he was raising the foundation of the sacred mosque currently in Saudi Arabia. He made a prayer. How many people were around him? No one, except his son. 2 individuals living in a desolate area, but they made a prayer. They made a prayer that this barren land will be full of people, will be full of houses, will be full of buildings, and people will come and make pilgrimage in this house. And this took almost 2,000 years for Prophet Muhammad to call people for the pilgrimage. 2,000 years, but he did his homework. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful message. Thank you. Yes, the last comment we have there, please.
My name is my name is Reverend Ozoaku Williams. I'm from Nigeria, and just want to appreciate all the panelists. Now, the last speaker actually took my words, but I have faced dialogue in a very critical situation where my life and the life of other of my colleagues were at risk, somewhere in Kaduna, Nigeria. And I want to say that when we say that in the face of crisis we cannot dialogue, probably I would disagree personally. There is no time we cannot dialogue. And like my brother said, dialogue, I have not seen dialogue failing. If dialogue had failed, I wouldn't have been here with Lantana, who is a Muslim, my brother who is from the Hare Krishna, and others. We wouldn't have been relating because we've been dialoguing. What fails, and I am speaking out of experience from my country in Nigeria, like Lantana said, is the approach we bring to dialogue, is the process. But dialogue itself will never fail. So when or any time, anyhow we feel that dialogue is failing, I want to encourage us, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's ask ourselves, what is the process we are using that is not working? And we need to tweak it, and then dialogue will work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. If you don't mind, because of the time, allow me just to say one a couple of sentences to brief, if you don't mind. One is that I want to make sure the process we went through is from failed, no dialogue, but I want to make sure that the space is also in the mind of us. It's okay to take a break. We don't have to impose on people. You have to dialogue every time, 24/7. It's okay. It's okay to take a break, and then when you feel ready, you can come back, and I will be here to engage with you. There is always dialogical format. There is no one form of dialogue. Right now, for the past 4 or 5 years, they've been working with something we called interreligious solidarity. And those are interfaith group who focusing on action rather than only conversation, and they come up with action to do. So if you don't want a dialogue, you can do interfaith solidarity. That will also be very meaningful. Choose the format and the model that is helpful for you. Most important is to acknowledge the humanity of the other. Most important to avoid dehumanization and to acknowledge the equality among everyone. And most important is to speak the language of faith. That's what makes our field meaningful, that we speak from the faith corner rather than from the secular. That's the prophetic message that people come with. Please join me in thanking our panelists, and thank you for all for that.
Speakers, please, could you stay on stage so they can take a picture? You can stand up and come together to the middle so Gustavo can take a picture. In the meantime, please, we can go for lunch. I'm not sure we will have hummus and falafel, but I'm sure we will have a lot to talk about. After lunch, you'll go directly to your breakout sessions. So please make sure you sign up on the app and check out which session you'd like to participate. I'm sure this is the time now to move on to action. So go and learn and practice dialogue. Have a good lunch and see you at 6:30 for the reception.